Well, good evening, good evening. When I tell you this is going to be a fabulous show because the technical difficulties that I just experienced is out of this world. I have no idea what happened. It was crazy. I had to close out everything and start all over on my computer. So I really thank you guys for your patience and welcome to another series show with Sip and Chat with Siri. What are you sipping on tonight? I want you guys to come on and chime in and join the podcast, engage in the conversation, engage in the discussion. We are celebrating Women History this month. So starting next week, I will be interviewing a lot of the beautiful women in the chamber. I will be interviewing some of the people, beautiful professionals and women in my network. And I have a lot of people in my network, right? So you're going to be in for a treat. And we're probably going to do it all week because we got a lot of women that are doing a lot of great things. They are really making a difference in our world. And, that's just how we do it, right? We can multitask, okay? So, our men got the one thing that they can do. We can do like 17 things at one time. So I am excited again for you guys and coming back and experiencing this whole Black economics series with me. This is part 3 that you're going to be seeing tonight. And then part 4 is going to be happening on Saturday morning at 9 a.m. Okay? 9 a.m. on Saturday morning. So you guys are certainly in for a lot of great information. And so I'm excited to be here with you tonight. If you want to just come on in and introduce yourself and engage and tell us about your business and tell us what you're doing and tell us what you think. Okay. We would love to hear more about it. As you guys can maybe hear in my background, I don't know, I got a busy area that I'm in, but I really thank you guys again for joining us. I am excited to say that one of our clips, we do a lot of clips, put it on our social media pages. We got about 5,000 hits. We were really excited about that. So 5,000 hits, people are really interested in learning about the Black Economics of 7 a.m. documentary that we are sharing with you. We've been sharing during the month of Black History. And we weren't able to get here last week, because of prior engagements, that I had. However, I didn't want you guys to miss out on part 3 and part 4. So this is part 3 tonight. I hope you enjoy it. I hope you engage and come on in and let me know what you're sipping on because, I'm sipping tonight. So bring your cup. Let me know what you're sipping on. Okay. All right. So I look forward to engaging with you guys tonight. And so come on in, say hi. Okay. I am excited about it. I'm always excited. No matter what is happening in the world, we still have to keep a smile on our face and still be excited. Why? Because God is in control. Do not let all this fear mongering with all this stuff going on. The Bible told us that we're going to hear about wars and rumors of wars, right? 10,000 may fall at your left and 1,000 at your right, but it will not come near you. All right? Because the Lord is watching over you. So as long as you're trusting God, you're going to be all right. So keep smiling, keep enjoying life because nobody can take your life but God himself anyway. And if you get called home to glory, hopefully you're going to go where the streets are paved with gold. So you'll be all good and get one of those mansions. Okay. But if not, we're going to talk about how to help you get there probably late before we leave tonight. All right. So you guys, once again, thank you so much for joining me here on the Sip and Chat with Siri. So come on in and chat and sip with me tonight. And let's go ahead and get into part 3 of Black Economics, 7 a.m. What do you do after 7 a.m.? let me know. All right, here we go. All right, let's see what we got here for you guys. Let's put that all over the screen and go ahead and get that started for you. Oh, you know what?
Attorney, F.B. Ransom, who was a much more prudent man, was a little nervous about that relationship because he understood that Marcus Garvey was looked askance on by the federal government. He was very close to Emmett Scott, who had been Booker T. Washington's assistant and secretary at Tuskegee, and who during 1918, 1919 was the highest ranking African American in the federal government, working in the War Department in the Office of Negro Affairs. And Madam Walker's attorney, F.B. Ransom, had a direct communication with Emmett Scott, and Emmett Scott had sent him a little warning saying, some of the people that Madam Walker's hanging out with are not necessarily looked upon with favor by the federal government. In fact, Madam Walker ought to be.
I'm going to stop it right there, everybody. Oh, uh-oh, what'd I do? Okay, am I still here? Okay. All right. So I am going to, that is so weird. I see myself twice. I don't know why. But yeah, so all right, we're going to like put this in here. And so anyway, I wanted to just make sure I'm gonna kind of go back on that video. I want you guys to take a look at her house. This is the house where she lived, okay? So she was really doing big things, all right? Really doing big things, okay? So I'm really excited to share this with you guys. All right. So give me a minute. I will be putting this on back on here. All right. So thank you guys, and I really hope you enjoy this documentary. And let's engage and let's discuss. All right.
Wells and Marcus Garvey were being attorney, F.B. Ransom, who was a much more prudent man, was a little nervous about at her home at Villa Lawaro. Now, her attorney, F.B. Ransom, who was a much more prudent man, was a little nervous about that relationship because he understood that Marcus Garvey was looked askance on by the federal government. He was very close to Emmett Scott, who had been Booker T. Washington's assistant and secretary at Tuskegee, and who during 1918, 1919 was the highest ranking African American in the federal government, working in the War Department in the Office of Negro Affairs. And Madam Walker's attorney, F.B. Ransom, had a direct communication with Emmett Scott, and Emmett Scott had sent him a little warning saying, some of the people that Madam Walker's hanging out with are not necessarily looked upon with favor by the federal government. In fact, Madam Walker, Ida B. Wells, and Marcus Garvey were being spied upon by a black spy named Walter Loving, who was working for the Department of Negro Affairs. And so Madam Walker ended up resigning from the International League of Darker People.
The children of Henry Ford and Joe Kennedy are still living off the money their elders made. So I asked, whatever became of Madam Walker's financial legacy? The company was a victim of a failure to innovate, coupled with a changing hair market driven by an overwhelming influx of competition from white cosmetic multinational corporations.
So after Madam Walker died, the company continued on. F.B. Ransom, who was her attorney and general manager, really kept the trains running on time. But the Depression hit. The company it had been making a lot of money, so $300,000 in 1919. By 1931, in the midst of the Depression, it was down to $30,000. They had just built a new fabulous building, a new expanded factory in Indianapolis that opened in 1928. They needed that capacity to be able to compete. So the company stayed in business and continued to, to thrive and limp and thrive and limp. And then by the 1950s, it really had a very small share of the market. It was losing market share. The Madam C.J. Walker Manufacturing Company, Sarah Spencer Washington's Apex, Annie Malone's Poro Company, those were the three big names. Then companies like Johnson Products and Soft Sheen and Summit Laboratories came along. They introduced chemical hair straighteners. And so that meant that those original three companies were beginning to decline because they didn't have their own line of chemical straighteners.
At the same time in history that white baseball was using its financial muscle to overtake the Negro Leagues, the same phenomena was happening to the black hair care manufacturers. And there was a particularly eerie similarity of how the same recruiting tactics used to undermine the Negro Leagues were now being employed to overtake the black hair care industry.
Those companies that had begun to take part of the market away from Walker, Apex, Poro, those companies started to be challenged by the L'Oreals of the world, by the Alberto Culvers of the world, who began to hire away the salespeople who had been the top salespeople at Summit, at Johnson Products, at Soft Sheen. And they could give them a little bit, more health benefits, bigger salary, all of those things, because they had, the deep pockets. Then 1960s, they're really not a major factor. They've really been left behind. It's really the brand and the mystique of Madam Walker that kept it around that long. In 1985, the company was sold. I don't have any involvement with the company. I don't even talk about it because I don't have any connection with it. There is a real reason to admire her and to look at Madam Walker and Annie Malone of Poro and Sarah Spencer Washington of Apex. What I see in terms of where things have gone now, what I see in terms of the legacy of Madam Walker is when I look at some of these innovative companies like Miss Jessie's, like Carol's Daughters, like the new website, Madam U. I look at these young Black women who are inspired by Madam Walker, who have taken what she was trying to do 100 years ago, which is make product for a Black woman, be involved in the community, be a philanthropist, and taking it to the next level.
We were brought to this country to work, to create wealth for other people. But when we were released from slavery, the nation that enslaved us never educated us on how to create wealth for ourselves. We think that wealth simply means money, but that's totally wrong. And you can't create your own wealth if you don't even understand what wealth is.
Now, what is wealth? To answer your question, wealth is accumulation of labor. It's the accumulation of labor. It's the result of labor. If I have a fruit tree out here loaded down with apples on it, and grows all the apples they want, but until somebody puts some labor behind taking those apples off, picking them, storing them, processing them, or doing something, selling them, they have no value. And that's what wealth is. And when Blacks try to go into business, since they can't get it, since they have no wealth, then they can't get access to the next thing, which is capital. Capital is a surplus of wealth that someone has or some group has, and now they want to interject it back into the system to create more wealth. And so when you hear black folks say, I want to go into business, but I don't have any capital. And they go down to the bank and try to borrow it. They can't borrow it because the first thing the bank will say is that, do you have any collateral? What kind of wealth, what kind of stored wealth do you have in a place to be able to justify as loaning you some money for a business? And so right now we're in the same position we were 150, 40, 50 years ago. We have moved 1 hour over. We are non-competitive people. We're an impoverished people. That's one of the biggest reasons. We have no wealth.
Dr. Claude Anderson is known as the godfather of Black socioeconomics. In recent years, Dr. Anderson has become the living personification of the old man of the river. But in true Claude Anderson style, Dr. Anderson didn't go to the river. Dr. Anderson brought the river to himself.
Well, first of all, let me officially welcome you to Waterland Fisheries. We're an aquaculture facility, but we use intensive cultures in our tanks, recirculating tanks. Each tank is independent. Each tank holds about 12,000 gallons of water. And we put about, on average, each tank produces about 20,000 pounds of fish a year. And they're producing tilapia right now, but also we're getting into other species. We are we're the biggest seafood producer in the state of Maryland, and probably one of the biggest in the United States, might even be the biggest in the world for Black people that's privately owned. Our capabilities, production capabilities, is about 1 million pounds a year in here now. And as we begin to expand, we're going to be doing much more than that. Capitalism means learning how to own and control the land, resources, the businesses, and use other people's labor to enrich yourself. That's why slavery worked so effectively. That's capitalism. That's in the 1500s. Now, W.D. Du Bois in 1915 defined it similarly. W.B. Du Bois says capitalism is like having 4 years of corn. You eat, save, and sell, and use the seeds for next year's planting. That's capitalism. Do you see me in either one of those definitions? I mentioned anything about social integration. I mentioned anything about civil rights. Civil rights and social ain't going to help Black folk. All they're going to do is it's going to contain them, while other groups go by them at 200 miles an hour.
A customer cannot build wealth. An employee cannot build wealth. Businesses are what build wealth. When you don't build businesses in your own community, by default, you're forced to turn your money over to people outside the community. But what do they do with our money? We found that oftentimes they use the very money we gave them to enrich themselves at our expense.
That money that Black people put in those church coffers every Sunday, you know where that money goes? White banks. They don't even put the money in Black banks. So let's follow this money all the way through now. They're using that $3 million on Sunday to make a $3 million loan to a white developer who's going to come into a Black getup, buy up all the vacant houses, rebuild them, raise the tax and property value of that neighborhood. And guess what happens to grandma, who actually contributes to the church? So the grandmother who's putting in money every Sunday in the church is going to end up losing her house because of the money she's giving the church, because the church is going to give that money to the white bank. The white bank is going to give a loan to a white developer. The white developer is going to raise the tax value. So the Black women who go to church already bought their house. But guess what? They're living on a fixed income. They're retired. They can't afford for the tax value to go up tremendously, but it's going to.
This building behind me is a General Motors building. That building sold for almost $3 billion. And the person who sold it made over $1.2 billion profit in about 5 years. But to buy that building, he paid over $1 billion to buy it. And he had to borrow money to accomplish that. So he had relationships with those capital sources. One of the challenges is that our community doesn't have those kinds of relationships. Now, ironically, many of the minorities who work for the government have invested in that building behind me because their pension funds invest in buildings like that or buildings like that. So they finance developers or real estate investors who buy these types of buildings. Yet those pension funds invest less than 2% of their money with minority managers and minority entrepreneurs. So part of it is now the fight today is not for equal rights. It's not for civil rights anymore. It's for equal economic empowerment.
Being a business owner is so crucial because it's the business owner who sets the price for everything. He sets the price for goods and services. He sets the price for marketing and distribution. And most importantly, he sets the price for labor, a worker's income. And for that reason, it's not how many hours you work or how hard you work that'll determine whether you live in poverty. Whether you live in poverty is determined by who pays your income. Your income alone, no matter how high, doesn't determine your wealth. In order for your source of income to qualify as wealth, it has to meet 3 requirements. Do you own it? Do you control it? And can you pass it down? If you can't do all 3 of those things with your income, no matter how large it may be, then it isn't actually wealth.
As African people, we are financially illiterate. So we should not be surprised that we're so economically backward because we were never taught how to be economically forward.
When we pick up the Ford 400, then on the Ford 400, there should be, 12%. So 44 African Americans should be in the Ford 400. Okay, there's not.
When it comes to self-made Black wealth in America, Don Peebles is perhaps the foremost authority on the subject. If America were a casino, Don Peebles is what they would call a whale.
I moved down to Miami, didn't know anybody. Within 6 months, I was awarded the largest development opportunity in that market and built the second largest hotel in that community and got the second largest development project in the city's history awarded to me. I went out to Las Vegas, did business there, didn't know anybody there. Went into San Francisco, didn't know anybody there, went and did business. Came to New York, didn't know anybody here, didn't know the mayor. Met the mayor, and the longest conversation I ever had with the mayor was in the holding area in this government building right before the press conference where he was announcing they had awarded and sold me a building. And so I didn't know anybody here either. I figured it out. So if I can figure it out, so can anybody else.
The single biggest question that men like Don Peebles and Dr. Anderson are asked is, how do I start my own business? If you have a job and have associates, then you have access to your own business.
Well, the first thing I would say, I have to be sort of prejudiced in this regard. I would tell them, you get some of the videos that I put out there and go in your basement, invite all the Blacks you know over to your base, over your house, and first form you a seed group, a group that come together. So here's what we're going to do. Get a group together. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to do this. Here's our plan. Then what we now have capital. Where you can get the capital from? You got to try to get the capital from yourself. Have your friends pooled, and if you don't have the capital, get it from your family. If you don't have it there, then you get it from all your friends. And then you set up an organization where you spend to use as much capital as you can, any way you can, to develop such an organization. And then create industries that begin to attract capital. So you got to disposable income.
I tell young people, here's my advice. You gave me the example of somebody in Walmart. I want to talk to the person in the kitchen at McDonald's or who's at the counter at McDonald's and tell them what a great opportunity they actually have because they're getting paid to learn how to become a McDonald's franchisor. Now, they walk in there every day and say, okay, this is my job. I hate it. And I'm getting underpaid. And they just go through the day and try to mark time, then they're destined to be doing that a long time. But if you go in there and say, hey, I'm going to learn everything I can about this business. I'm going to do some extra work. So I'm not going to run out of there when my shift is up. I'm not going to run out of there. I'm going to try to do some other things. Maybe I can clean up a little bit. Maybe I can do this. I'm going to do this is the best. I'm going to be the most cheerful to the customer. I'm going to be the most outgoing and responsive. And I am going to use my time as a cashier is to learn how to interact with people because people skills is very important in business. So I'm going to learn how to communicate. I'm going to learn to be friendly. Hey, how are you doing? Learning how the business is run. who's delivering what supplies and so forth. And then maybe asking, sir, who the franchise owner, sir, can I do, or ma'am, can I do some extra work tonight? You know, you don't have to pay me. I got a little bit of time. Let me help you out. But the mindset is they're getting paid to learn how to become a business person and learn how to become a McDonald's franchisee. Then, if they have that attitude, they'll be a manager in that McDonald's in no time at all. And if they become a manager, then it's obtainable to own their own McDonald's. Drive around, look for sites for a McDonald's or a Burger King, you know, or a Wendy's, you know, or Popeyes. But change the way we think. So if we change the way we think, then we can change where we are. But if we can't change how we think and how we approach things, we are never going to be any different in any different place than where we are right now.
You live in a world that's more homicidal than suicidal. Nobody in this country is gonna go out of their way to kill himself on behalf of Black folk.
Black people have focused on how white privilege abuses us through the government and the judicial system. But you can't disarm either of them until you take control of the economy first. Economics is the fuel that powers politics, the courts, and everything else.
It's like a 5-story building. The first floor must always be economics. You live in a capitalist society. The first thing you must do if you want to strengthen your people is to practice group economics. You pull your people together around a group interest, a group need, a group sense of obligation. You pull them together and you build a community. And in that community, you make that a business community. And inside that business community, you create an economy. And we do not have not one single Black community in America. All we got in America are neighborhoods. A neighborhood where, as I said before, is where you eat and sleep. Holiday Inn is a neighborhood. A community is different. To have a community, you must have 3 elements to have a community. You must have an economy, you must have a code of conduct, you must have politicians that will respect and respond to your needs. And we do not have not one Black neighborhood in America that will qualify as a community. And if without a community, you cannot be a competitive group. You cannot even survive at some point. You're going to go down. So the first floor is what if you're going to do something for politics, you must have an economy.
The world has been talking about Ferguson, Missouri, and how 18-year-old unarmed teenager Mike Brown was gunned down by their police department. What the world hasn't been talking about is the fact the town of Ferguson is 2/3 Black, yet its city government and police department are almost all white. And in case you think money was an obstacle, Ferguson Mayor Jay Knowles ran for office with a campaign budget of about $2,500, less than most people spend on a used car. In all, during the last round of elections, the total campaign budgets for the mayor and the entire city council totaled less than $10,000.
You take the money off the first floor is the economics. You take that economics and you build and you control the second floor. The second floor is politics. Politicians mean nothing. Politics have no power. They respond to the economy beneath them. Economics on the first floor control the politicians. That's why in this last election with Obama, the wealth of people around this country, they control what went on and went down, whether it was Romney or anybody else. It's money. I keep telling Blacks and telling them it's money that controls politics, not votes. Nobody care about your votes. It's what you own and control. You take that money and you buy every politician on the second floor. And you rent or you lease them, as long as you need them. And then once you reach is what we call the court system and your law enforcement system, your police departments. You control them and stop them from brutalizing Black folk while driving while Black. Actually, they control your third floor. Then you use that money off the first floor to control your fourth floor. Your fourth floor is media, radio station, TV station, cable systems, a movie, whatever you want. You control that with the economy off the first floor. Black folk want to know why they don't have any radio station, TV stations. Right now, Black folk own 35 thousandths of 1%. 35,000 or 1% of all the media in America is owned by black folk. You got 12,000 radio stations. They buy black folk own like about 70 or 80 out of 12,000. Out of 5,000 daily newspapers, you don't own any. Out of 5,000 TV stations, you might own one. You own nothing because you don't have the economy on the first floor to control the things in the media on the fourth floor. And the fifth floor is education. And I keep hearing black folk talking about education is a cure. Education is another waste of time. If you don't have an economy, all you can do is prepare somebody to go out and work for somebody else back to the slave period where they're going to generate wealth and power for somebody else. You're going to try to enrich another group or another company.
Our education in America has not provided or prepared us to be able to compete with Europeans economically. The historically black college was designed to do what? Teach you how to work for white people. Public schools, charter schools, parochial schools, independent schools. What is the purpose of education in America for black children right now? To teach them how to make a living working for white people. But I don't want the kids coming to my school to be going to class thinking that I'm learning this so I can go and get paid by a white person. They're going to be empowered to start their own business. When they leave that school, they're going to go into business.
And in the schools, you need to teach them how to do business plans, to do accounting, and cost analysis, benefit, and everything else. They use their schools to teach a kid that rather learn how to run with a darn football, basketball, how to learn how to manufacture basketball, the footballs, or how to invent something before he leaves elementary school. When he gets to high school, teach him that he must take a trade skill the last 2 years of school. We learn how to be able to produce something. That's what your school should be designed to do on the fifth floor. Teach the children to be economically competitive. Then you have a 5-story building. You can come out and you start raising cane and being a competitive group.
We're going to have to make some sacrifices because we're spending too much money on cell phones, too much money on automobiles, too much money on hair, pocketbooks, okay, too much money on vacations compared to other people in this country. If we could just hold back on some of that money, we can begin to fund our much needed revolution. All we got to do is use our Christmas money right here in Philadelphia. Black people spend $3 billion every Christmas, not million, $1 billion. Well, they say Delaware Valley, so that's Philadelphia, then Delaware, some in New Jersey. But $3 billion, even for 3 states of black people, when we're only 10% of Pennsylvania, that is insane. Imagine what our national numbers are. In other words, you don't even have to sacrifice your everyday dollar. Just sacrifice your holiday dollar.
Right now, we're about to, as a group, collectively in America, we're about the 9th richest nation on earth. If we were to hold on all the money we got and invest it in black hands and practice group economics.
And then we need to do something about it. And part of it is we got to support each other. We cannot, disparage each other. And if you look at any other group in this country who has either immigrated here or who's a minority in this country, those who have been successful stick together and they work together and they support each other. And that's what we, have to learn to do again.
We come from kings, we come from queens, we come from survivors, we come from fighters, we come from warriors. If we can say that and be proud about that, it'll help us be able to say, yeah, I'm African American and I'm unapologetic about that, and it's not a shameful thing. But on a society, on a societal basis, we're always related to something negative. So yeah, it's shameful to be African American if you don't see beyond that.
If we're going to be empowered economically, we have to do it ourselves. And we can. We have the disposable income to build up without a loan from the bank. But why can't we do it? Because as the Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey said, we are a race of people cursed with petty differences. We do not have enough commitment to ourselves as African people to want to put our money in the same pot. Slavery taught us to hate ourselves and to mistrust ourselves. And in order for you to build economically, you have to do what? Love each other, trust each other enough to take some of that money you spending on cars and vacations, some of that money you spending on pocketbooks and high heels and hair, some of that money that you spending on clothing and booze and out at the nightclub and entertainment. Save some of that money and put it in a pot with other African Americans, and let's start building that school. Let's build a hospital. Let's build our own shipping line. Let's build our own airline. Let's build our own distribution network.
I'd love to see
I'd love to read in the paper tomorrow that Oprah just put Uncle Rollo in as executive vice president of production. That's the next frontier. That's where we still haven't exerted that power and authority. We're still too infinitely grateful for being successful. And an Oprah or Bill Cosby or people like them, they don't have to be infinitely grateful because these places owe them, if anything. And that's where we get it twisted. We haven't quite figured that out yet. And so as a result, people who can, in fact, exert a lot more power and authority don't really do it.
Black people live in a state of oppression to white privilege. The reason the schools, the courts, and the politicians haven't changed our condition is because that isn't their job. It's ours. Black people were brought to America to be a cost-free labor force. But now that we're no longer needed for that purpose, and racism and societal oppression still continue against us, this has led most Black people to a feeling that the agenda has shifted from trying to enslave us to removing us from the American landscape altogether.
Slavery was economic and racial. It was white supremacy and capitalism together. So if we were brought here to serve white capitalism, and white capitalism no longer needs us to serve because they have illegal immigrants to do that, and enough white people in the country to pretty much do that, what economic benefit is the Black man to America today? He has none. And to help speed up your removal, we're going to send drugs and guns into your community by way of the CIA, and we're going to build more prisons to lock you up for almost anything you do wrong to speed up the Negro removal project that we have been engaged in since 1865, but has since intensified in the 90s with the presidency of Bill Clinton and the mass expansion of jails by giving out mandatory minimum sentences for nonviolent drug-related offenses. We are at the end game.
There are those who doubt this could happen.
Will we become extinct or something? No, we'll just be poor. Let me tell you why I don't think that's a possibility.
Okay.
Because being poor and I don't think being poor has ever stopped the African American community from reproducing.
But others see a far darker campaign at work, and ominous parallels between what's happening to Black people in America and what happened to another group of ethnic undesirables in another country that used race as their economic rationale to enslave them.
The end game is very clear. The end game is on the wall, written on the wall. There's a guy put out a book called Willing Executioner. He did a critical examination of the period in the 1930s, 1940s of Germans and their treatment of Jews in Europe. He wanted to do a critical analysis and find out what were the factors that led to this. Why were the Germans could so easily exterminate 6 to 8 million Jews? And at the conclusion, including a big, thick book, he said, the end was this. Anytime you live in a competitive society and you have an out-group in that society, just like Black people are an out-group, and they're constantly being disparaged and disappointed and rejected and put down and excluded by the media and the other groups around them, and they're also abandoned by their own leadership. They're now being set up to be exterminated.
We are being faced with economic annihilation, which is why if we don't come together and unify as a people, it's only a matter of time before there might not be too many African Americans left in this country. If you kill people economically, you're ultimately going to kill them physically. When people can't provide, they stop having children. When people can't provide, they get addicted to all types of drugs. They're stressed out, okay, more likely to take their own life. When you strangle the people economically, you can best believe you are also going to end up reducing their numbers. And this has been proven through science. Economic death precedes actual biological death. And that's where we at now, the end game.
Right now, nobody cares about you under public policy of benign neglect and hateful indifference. You can't find any program you look at right now, from the highest levels in government to the lowest level, there's not one single inclination to ever even mention the word black. Nobody can mention anything about black people. In the program, they come out, they're gonna talk about, here's what we're gonna do for gays, immigrants, women, Asians, American Indians. You've never in the last 10 years or so, nobody can mention the word black will never come up. You're being set.
But it's not going to be easy because white supremacy is backed up with a gun and a bomb. So we got to be very strategic of how we operate, particularly in the United States of America, because they have shown you time and time again that they don't matter snuffing out black leaders for doing anything against the best interests of the government.
Raymond F. DeVoe once said, economics is war waged by other means. And today, every economic form of weaponry is being pulled out against Black people by the private and even the public sector.
You go to New York, Harlem is being gentrified. I was just there yesterday. Philadelphia is being gentrified. Washington, D.C., all but gentrified. Even now, Los Angeles, wherever we go, our people are being gentrified.
In places like New York, gentrification is in full swing in historically Black neighborhoods like Harlem and Brooklyn, and it's new construction in old neighborhoods that's the prime tool of removal. In other words, every time a rich developer builds a new condominium in Brooklyn, they essentially set off a $50 million economic bomb with a blast yield of up to 4 blocks or more, designed to remove every Black person within its radius. In the city of Detroit, they're targeting both land and water to displace Blacks. In the summer of 2014, just 1 year after Detroit filed bankruptcy, the city began targeting delinquent water bills as a way to gain more revenue. Over the last decade, Detroit's water rates have risen to almost twice the national average. Detroit's mayor and state-appointed emergency finance manager have hatched a plan that could potentially disconnect half the city's water accounts. Curiously enough, the city hasn't targeted its biggest delinquent accounts, such as major businesses. But there's an even bigger threat. The city of Detroit is one of many places around the country where the water bill is attached to the property, not the account holder. Unlike your electric or phone bill, if your water gets cut off in Detroit, your bill isn't sent to a debt collector. It's sent to the city tax assessor's office and is then added to the property's yearly tax bill. If the tax bill isn't paid in full, the property goes into foreclosure to the city, who then sells the property at the tax auction. And not just in Detroit.
This is so bad, guys. I did not know my mic was off, and I'm just going on and on and on. Forgive me. It is a very bad technical difficulty night tonight. I don't know what it is, but I've had some serious technical difficulties. But again, that was amazing video. Lots of information. Again, I said, we have to unite. It used to be a time where we can go next door and borrow sugar from Miss Mary, and it wouldn't be talked about because there was no social media, right? And I don't think they would have talked about it then anyway, because everybody looked out for everyone's kid. So my neighbors, they knew who I was. They knew my mom. They knew, so people knew each other in the community. We can get back to that. But I know it's kind of hard because of all the gentrification that's been taking place, like what they just talked about in the video, what you just saw. It's all been a plan. There's we have no more use for Black people. We can't put them in the cotton field anymore. They're owning businesses and they're doing this and that. I mean, what? We need to bring immigrants over now. We need to bring somebody else over to take that place. That's not right. So, I mean, we have to think. I want you guys to think about this. I want you all to really think about these videos that you're watching that I'm sharing with you, because we're going to come back up here on the podcast and we're going to have a discussion after all the videos are shown. And, and then, there may be some private things that you want to talk to me about. So you can reach out to me at the chamber, iobcoc.org. You can call the number 312-970-9036. And you can also go up on our website if you want to donate or something and be part of the chamber. And, because the chamber can be that economic, that first floor. Did you guys think about that? When he talked about that first floor, that's your chamber, right? You could do that with your chamber. We can be that first floor to start building up our communities economically, so then we can start working and managing those other floors. So I hope you're learning a lot from this information and these videos that I'm showing you. Again, we couldn't show them all during Black History Month because I had some other prior engagements, but I did want to share this with you. Okay, so let's see if we have any comments in the chat. Okay, how about that? Okay, so we have, okay. Well, thank you. Hi, dear heart. Hi, I appreciate you stopping in. Thank you so much for coming in, Antoinette. I really appreciate you. And so, our chat, this podcast should be packed with people, right? I don't know what it is. Is it just Black people don't care anymore? Or you just feel like it's over? I mean, there's no hope. Our children are counting on us, right? You think these young men out here that's robbing or sticking to people, you think they want to do that? I mean, where's the trades? They took the trades out the school, remember? They closed up all these schools here in Chicago, forcing, kids to have to, walk distances, far away from their home just to go to school. I mean, why did they just do it right in the Black community? Think about it. Rahm Emanuel, right? Did that the mayor we had, and so we have to think, I don't know what it is, but the only people that are going to help us is us. Okay? You cannot look at other cultures to say they're going to help you. And I've got great friends. I've got white friends. I've got Asian friends. I've got, Mexican friends, and I love them dearly, go to bat for them, But at the end of the day, I'm still a Black woman, right? And, this village is what raised me and made me the person that I am today. So, and, I just want to see us come together and start loving on each other more. I just want to see us come together and not be afraid to tell another Black woman that she's beautiful, or a Black man, hey, King, you look good. And things like that. I mean, come on, we got to start uplifting one another, and then you'll feel good about yourself too. This, we pretty much, we keep it real here on Sip and Chat with Siri, right? Probably because I'm sipping on something, so I ain't gonna say what. So, but you guys, I don't know. It's just a question. It's really, I just don't know what the answer is. I really, really, really hope that you are paying attention to what the individuals are saying on this video, because there has to be a change. We can't keep going the same route. I mean, the majority of our young men, even our women, are in prison. Come on. We've got to change this thing. We have got to build businesses, and we've got to uplift business. We've got to go and purposely go to a Black restaurant, purposely go to a Black retail store, purposely, help a Black organization out, purposely do these things. We shouldn't have to beg for, keep on pushing for people to come over into the chamber. We've got all these resources, right? The first thing that my Caucasian residents move into the community in Garfield Park, they're like, where's the chamber? They look for the chamber. Why don't you guys look for the chamber? We've got to understand that chambers are just not here. I can only speak for myself. We're really here to be a partner with you and to help you to get access to capital. And God is opening up doors for us and bringing people in our life and my life, that's really going to help you get access to capital. Because that's been the downfall. I know we can walk into a bank, and it doesn't matter if you made six figures in your company, they still look at you and say, no, we can't give you $10,000. I'll never forget going into a bank when I made it in my first company in 1999. And I had made 140,000 in my company in less than 6 months of starting with zero money, right? And but I built it. I had no computer or anything. I was at Kinko's. That was my office. But I had faith in God and my abilities. And so my company, we had revenues of about 140,000. And so 9/11 hit. Things were starting to go down. I was like, okay, I need to get a loan. I got to keep things going. And even though I had made all that revenue, they would only give me $2,500. My credit was good and everything. It didn't matter. I had to go to a Hispanic neighborhood. I'm not gonna put the name of the company out there. They're all on the west side now, but they only gave me $2,500. And I said, I'd never forget that. Do I fool with that company because they're over in my community? No, I don't. I don't even know. I'm like, you guys came over here. Why? Because there was money coming on the west side. They go where the money's going to go. But I'll never forget the $2,500. I was like, wow, what am I supposed to do with this? So we have to start owning more banks. We have to build ourselves up economically if we want to be able to have the funds to put into a Black person's business and, and things like that. So, come on. You got to help each other, right? And keep loving on our other, brothers and sisters, because, we all bleed the same. Okay. But unfortunately, there's people in this world that has divided cultures. They don't, a lot of people in power, they don't look at us as we're all the same. They look at, oh, this is the white people. This is the Hispanic people. This is the Asian people, so they've separated us, and so because of that, we have to think about, well, hey, if you separated us, I got to unite with my people, with my culture, and help them as much as I can. And they were right about the politicians. Our communities look terrible in Chicago. Ride down Madison Street. Come on now. I'm talking from Garfield Park, Western, all the way down to Austin. I'm not talking about over by the United Center that they've already gentrified and continue to gentrify, you know, but ride down that street and then ride over, on the south side, 63rd and King Drive, stuff like that, So many communities that have black aldermen still look terrible. So is this video when the speakers are saying what they're saying and making the comments about, you put black politicians in there, but they're not going to go on your agenda. Why? Because you didn't put them in there. You think your vote probably, helped them out, but they're focused on the people that gave them the money. And you, black person, black community, didn't give them the money. Okay. So they're going to go on the agenda of those that was in their campaign, whether they be Greek, whether they be whatever, they're going to go with people in their campaign. So we just got to change some things, folks. And we want to thrive and survive in America. We have got to start thinking differently. And the first thing we have to do is start loving on each other. We have to start loving on each other. We have to stop allowing other people's opinion to have us dislike someone. We really have to stop doing that. People, even myself, it's like, why that lady don't like me? I don't even know her. It's like doesn't make any sense. You haven't broke bread with me. You don't know anything about me, but you don't like me. Why? So, it's dumb stuff like that. Man, it's not going to get you anywhere in life by disliking, your own people and not loving on them and everything. What are you going to gain? Because you really can't stop anything that God has for them in their life. If you don't like me, you can't stop what God got for me. You can't. Just because you don't like me. People continue on what they're doing. Case in point, your president. Folks hate Donald Trump. They shaved their head and everything when he won. I'm like, well, y'all hate the man. Ooh, don't let that man be the reason y'all go to hell. Come on now. God said, love everybody. Even if they might be doing things that you don't agree with. You still, if you believe in the Lord and you're a Christian, you believe in our Lord Jesus, you have to love everybody. And then pray. God will change things, but you can't sit here and hate. That's just, you can't do that. Your life, you may be required to go to heaven or leave this world tonight or something. And you die with hate in your heart. Don't go to bed with hate in your heart. I don't care if it's the president. I don't care, people that did you wrong. I've had people steal stuff from me. I've had politicians take stuff from me, ideas, all kinds of stuff, stop projects. Oh my God. And the list goes on and on and on, but I still smile. And I keep all of those that did me wrong in prayer. Because, this is just material stuff. Why am I going to go to bed hating that guy because he stopped a project or thought he stopped a project? God allowed you to stop the project because he has something greater in store. So you keep smiling, and okay, I'm grabbing my cup. Keep smiling, keep sipping, whether you're sipping on some water or you're sipping on a little wine or whatever it may be, And yes, I am a minister of the gospel, but I don't get drunk and I definitely don't drink every day. So, but occasionally when I feel like, I got something to celebrate, I may have a little sip. But come and sip on some coffee, some water, tea, whatever, your favorite beverage, and join me here every Thursday night, 7 p.m. Saturday morning, we're going to be doing this again at 9 a.m. And we had so many hits on our clips that we put out there. We may do it more days and have, different segments and different things come out. But, I've got some innovative, creative ideas for you guys. All right. So thank you again for joining me this evening. I hope you enjoyed the video. Come back on Saturday morning, 9 a.m. for the executive edition. That's our really talk, right? So come back for that edition and see part 4 of 7 a.m. God bless you. You guys have a wonderful night. I love you. Jesus loves you. So do I. And there's nothing you can do about it. Good night.